Defining one turning point is not very easy, but what really affected my whole life and my work is the chance of making very direct and real contact with various groups of people and individuals. That really opened up my mind, that defined and refined my search in the cities and what kind of profession that I really want to get involved. So having this real contact with the people that are supposed to be planned or the people that are supposed to be developed by an expert and external helped me to see things a bit differently, from maybe shuffle all these expected roles from a planner or from an urbanist and start to understand the common ground that you as an expert or planner share with fellow citizens, and kind of reformulate your relationship with in the society in a more meaningful way. So yeah, I was lucky to make these quite interesting contacts, and these contacts really educated me. So I had the chance to learn from the so-called disadvantaged people in the city, from different groups in different places and different cities. And in each contact I really try to take something, to learn something from them. I guess that was my turning point. The whole life is full of challenges, so the biggest one. One of the students was also asking me this the other day, saying, so what is like one thing, tell me one thing, the worst, the most difficult things with regards to expatriate planning. I couldn't come up with one thing. It's not that they don't have that kind of quick answer, but well, you try to open up new spaces, because how the things are working, how the things are evolving, how the status quo it has established is not receptive for the kind of work that I do. So you first need to create that space. So there's no sort of invitation that's waiting for you to come and do the work that you are doing the way you do. So you need to create your own space, and that's by itself. You start from the very beginning with a challenge. You need to make people believe in those subjects of the planning. Those people their views are important, and they should be equal partners in the whatever project it is. So, I mean, our education, our academies, our universities, or the market that we work in, the world that we live in, doesn't really operate in that way. You are trained to be an architect, planner, or an expert of development. It means you need to also, your training includes this one-way flow of knowledge to the people. But what I argue, what I also teach, what I try to live is like you are just one of the guys, one of the actors, and you have to learn ways in which to be equal and to listen and to understand and to compromise. So yeah, I guess the biggest challenge is really setting the scene. Starting is the biggest challenge, and then the rest just comes. Mostly I'm working in Turkey, in Istanbul, and different cities in the Middle East. I had a chance to live in Latin America, in Dominican Republic, and did research in quite various cities. So that really helped me to kind of also open broaden my view, my horizon, and to learn from different contexts. Try to see commonalities as well as differences. So that really kind of help you to not to come with this grand narrative of urbanism, but really start seeing the importance of every context and details and the uniqueness of each place that you work at. I work usually, unfortunately or fortunately, on various projects at the same time. So now there is a few projects that I'm involved in, but one that I'm lucky to be part of, a design collective in Istanbul that we are helping a very long, enduring community to design their own neighborhood and houses. This is a cooperative that was formed, housing cooperative that was formed after the earthquake in 1999, and for a very long time, for more than 15 years, these people had struggled to get a land from the state, and finally they got the land. And with a group of designers coming from different backgrounds, we are helping the cooperative to design and build their own neighborhood. And that was a process that I involved a few years ago, and now we are on a really good track. Construction is starting this month, and our students in Urbano, they also involved into this design process for the last 2 years. So for me that was a kind of positive outcome, that to seeing a long-lasting work, struggle is finally being really realized. Well, I work directly with the professionals and non-professionals, with the people, with the different community organizations, neighborhoods, cooperatives. So try to base all my work to with the people, and usually in our works we form these transdisciplinary groups. I mean, that is not because we really seek for bringing all these different disciplines together and non-disciplines together, but it is the kind of group that we have, and that's we kind of value this kind of diversity within our working groups. So, for instance, in this project that I explained, that's on the participatory design of housing project, we have architects, planners, engineers, psychologists, sociologists, just volunteers with a lot of motivation, with no maybe education. So, and the community members, young and old, women and men. So this is a kind of diverse group of, let's say, a broader community that we also, as outsiders, become part of it throughout the project. So, and yeah, most of the projects that I'm involved have this sort of diversity. Well, what we see, unlike maybe what we are see the examples in the, let's say, more prosperous part of the world, or unlike the history of, let's say, mass housing, what it really teaches, how I see housing for the places like my city, Istanbul, or the cities of these growing cities. Housing is not something provided. Housing is something produced collectively. So, and that is the kind of understanding that really defines our projects, our work as well. This, the idea that housing is delivered, housing is something that is provided to the people, doesn't really exist almost anywhere in the world. So we have to kind of get this understanding. It's because this understanding important that when we see housing as something to be produced collectively with the people, with their own initiative, then the whole meaning of housing and the process of housing regain a different meaning. So then what really participatory design means is a different question when you look at the issue from this perspective, for instance. Also, how I see the housing is not really, even though it is something that is visible and it looks like a product, but it is not a product. Housing is about collective production, but it is more process than a product. And the process in which you not only through housing build the city, so housing is urbanization in a way, but also you build the citizens, the communities, so it's not only housing, but it is the public spaces, it's not only housing, but it is the public life that you build collectively throughout this process. So that's also helped us to kind of go beyond this kind of very separating understanding of functions and the spaces in the city and diminishing it. It also helps us not to diminish the value of housing when you put the whole question like that. So it becomes all of a sudden, actually the housing question becomes the question of who has say in the city, who has say in the city making, who is the citizen, and this kind of dichotomy between housing, the private space and the public space also disappears. So this is, I guess, the way I see the whole housing question, and that's reflected in our project. Well, public space is also not something that is constant or static, that is not changing. Public space also a process and a constant struggle. So it means that there is it's not enough to look at the adjectives on the space, public space, private space, but it is the process in which a space becomes public. It's the commoning processes. So in a way, initially a private space carries the potential to be public, or a very public space also carries the risk to be very exclusionary and in a way in de facto private. So this is important, like to always keep in mind public space is the space in which public, with all its diversity, is constantly reforming and restruggling to shape, to give meaning. And that is also in a way meaning of democracy, where the ideas is challenging and people trying to come to certain meanings and conclusions, but not one. So this is the way in which I see the public space, and it's obviously relates to the housing, where for a very practical reason, this way of seeing the public-private or this kind of dichotomic understanding is also represented in the housing question. Like we kind of disregard the whole so-called public spaces when you get into a housing project. It just become a kind of either a last touch or something that is being taught at the very end, or just an issue of landscaping, etc., etc. But when you put the question how the publicness among the community actually producing the whole housing, whole city, then you bridge this kind of gap between these spheres. So in a way I can say that the public space or our urban commons should be the central question of housing, and not being perceived as two separate categories. Gezi Park, or where the park is located, is just next to Taksim Square, as being like one of the most prominent square in the country, not only in Istanbul. So in a way, it's a public plaza, Taksim Square, and one would expect it to be, a public space, meaning not privatized, open to everyone, etc., etc. But as I said, public space is a constant struggle of shaping, giving meanings from different groups and actors in the city. And here, one example with Gezi Park. Right after the Gezi Park was the occupation movement. It's reappropriation of a space by the people coming from very diverse backgrounds and giving new meaning to an existing public space. So it was in a way very successful movement, and it kind of we create a new kind of symbol for commons in the city. So all of a sudden, a space, a park that exists for such a long time, we saw that it could regain a new meaning through this movement. But right after the police involvement and crushing the protesters and kind of retaking control of the area, we also saw the very same public place can also be quite hostile and exclusionary of the broader public. So the people, including protesters, were excluded from the area. They were kind of sealed off. Heavy police control were introduced. All the colors and diversity in the area was kind of cleaned, and the only public feeling that you get was the public authorities. So it became the space of public authority. So public space, in a way, it is still public, but representing the state, not anymore the people. So this is the kind of experience that we had, which still, after 2 years, more than 2 years, has an impact. Like now, protests in Taksim Square in Gezi Park is not allowed, so you have to kind of find your way, sneak or kind of struggle with the authorities to just make your voice heard in that area. So, but in theory, on paper, it's a public space. Replication is not my way of doing things, but yes, at least it's a way to learn lessons. Like we are from anywhere in the world, from all the urban experiences, we are just gathering lessons and we are trying to adapt that to our own context. So yes, this can be also one way.